Good evening, everyone. Monday Mindset, October 7th. Is this our first October call? Yeah, because I think last time it was the last day of September. I don't remember what the homework was because my memory is not to be trusted. Debbie, do you remember what the homework was?
I do not.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No.
Lamaya, do you remember the homework?
Oh, we're naughty.
Naughty, naughty, naughty.
Let me, I can find my notes. I'll be back.
Excuse me. Well, while we're looking for that, I do want to talk about the Boo baskets. So last week, we decided to launch something called Boo Baskets. And if anybody doesn't know what those are, it's basically a basket full of Halloween goodies. And for every 10 points, we'll add a new goodie to your basket. So you can earn points by sales, shows, and sponsoring for the whole month of October. So if you didn't have any sales, shows, or sponsoring in the first week of October, don't give up. There's still a lot of time to have sales, shows, and sponsoring. No one has sponsored on the entire team yet. We're on a 7-day streak of no sponsoring, but we just had two back-to-back very heavy sponsoring months, so that's not super surprising. But this Google form is pinned at the top of our Facebook page, and it's just a quick name, executive, and you fill out your points. And you can do this every Friday to kind of keep up with it. But if you missed last week and you want to fill it out now, I'm fine with that too. And does anybody have questions about this? I know it's just three of us on here, but if you have questions, now would be a good time for that.
I seem to have a little bit of a hard time with it because it's like if you don't have something in each row,
Yeah, like the formatting's hard.
yeah, like I clicked on what I had and then
Mhm.
it wouldn't let me submit it until I put NA or whatever it was in the last column.
Yeah, I wonder if I can let me play with that this week and see if there's a better way to do it. Because I might, if I switch it, if I put sales on the side, like sales shows, if I switch the two, that might help.
Okay.
I'll try that. We'll play around with it before we take more of those. All
Last week,
right.
I'm sorry, last
Go
week we
ahead.
also talked about our sales being small. The fortune was in the follow-up,
Mhm.
sample follow-up. It was more of like questions of how to follow up with people and
Yeah, I remember now we were talking about stuff we were struggling with and how to kind of make a plan and overcome that.
hmm.
Yeah. Well, I would love to read to y'all tonight. This is from the book Atomic Habits if you want to read along. I finished this book last week and I really like this chapter towards the end of the book really stuck with me, and all week I've been thinking about it and I was like, "Oh, that'd be a really cool tip to share with people." There's four laws, and it's the last chapter of the fourth law. So it's towards the end of the book. There is a whole nother section of the book called Advanced Tactics, how to go from being merely good to being truly great. And I really enjoyed that part too. But this is the last chapter of the fourth law. It's chapter 17, page 205, in case you have the book and want to read it. But I'm going to read out loud to you guys. So it says, how an accountability partner can change everything. After serving as a pilot in World War II, Roger Fisher attended Harvard Law School and spent 34 years specializing in negotiation and conflict management. He founded the Harvard Negotiation Project and worked with numerous countries and world leaders on peace resolutions, hostage crises, and diplomatic compromises. But it was in the 1970s and 80s, as the threat of nuclear war escalated, that Fisher developed perhaps his most interesting idea. At the time, Fisher was focused on designing strategies that could prevent nuclear war, and he had noticed a troubling fact. Any sitting president would have access to launch codes that could kill millions of people, but would never actually see anyone die because he would always be thousands of miles away. My suggestion was quite simple, he wrote in 1981. Put that nuclear code number in a little capsule and then implant that capsule right next to the heart of a volunteer. The volunteer would carry with him a big, heavy butcher knife as he accompanied the president. If ever the president wanted to fire nuclear weapons, the only way he could do so would be for him first, with his own hands, to kill one human being. The president says, George, I'm sorry, but tens of millions must die. He has to look at someone and realize that death is what an innocent death is. Blood on the White House carpet, its reality brought home. When I suggested this to friends in the Pentagon, they said, my God, that's terrible. Having to kill someone would distort the president's judgment. He might never push the button. Throughout our discussion of the fourth law of behavior change, we have covered the importance of making good habits immediately satisfying. Fisher's proposal is an inversion of the fourth law, make it immediately unsatisfying. Just as we are more likely to repeat an experience when the ending is satisfying, we are also more likely to avoid an experience when the ending is painful. Pain is an effective teacher. If a failure is painful, it gets fixed. If a failure is relatively painless, it gets ignored. The more immediate and more costly a mistake is, the faster you will learn from it. The threat of a bad review forces a plumber to be good at his job. The possibility of a customer never returning makes restaurants create good food. The cost of cutting the wrong blood vessel makes a surgeon master human anatomy and cut carefully. When the consequences are severe, people learn quickly. The more immediate the pain, the less likely the behavior. If you want to prevent bad habits and eliminate unhealthy behaviors, then adding an instant cost to the action is a great way to reduce their odds. We repeat bad habits because they serve us in some way, and that makes them hard to abandon. The best way I know to overcome this predicament is to increase the speed of the punishment associated with the behavior. There can't be a gap between the action and the consequences. As soon as actions incur an immediate consequence, behavior begins to change. Customers pay their bills on time when they are charged a late fee. Students show up to class when their grade is linked to attendance. We'll jump through a lot of hoops to avoid a little bit of immediate pain. There is, of course, a limit to this. If you're going to rely on punishment to change behavior, then the strength of the punishment must match the relative strength of the behavior it is trying to correct. To be productive, the cost of procrastination must be greater than the cost of action. To be healthy, the cost of laziness must be greater than the cost of exercise. Getting fined for smoking in a restaurant or failing to recycle adds consequence to an action. Behavior only shifts if the punishment is painful enough and reliably enforced. In general, the more local, tangible, concrete, and immediate the consequence, the more likely it is to influence individual behavior. The more global, intangible, vague, and delayed the consequence, the less likely it is to influence individual behavior. Thankfully, there is a straightforward way to add an immediate cost to any bad habit. Create a habit contract. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions or comments? Aha moments? Are you talking, Deb? Oh, okay. I saw your mouth moving, but you're muted. I love the way this author writes. I think his stories are so like they're not relatable and like I haven't been through that, but the message behind them is really impactful. So let's talk about this habit contract. The first seatbelt law was passed in New York on December 1st, 1984. At the time, just 14% of people in the United States regularly wore a seatbelt, but that was all about to change. Within 5 years, over half of the nation had seatbelt laws. Today, wearing a seatbelt is enforceable by law in 49 of the 50 states. And it's not just the legislation, the number of people wearing seatbelts has changed dramatically as well. In 2016, over 88% of Americans buckled up each time they got in a car. In just over 30 years, there was a complete reversal in the habits of millions of people. Laws and regulations are an example of how government can change our habits by creating a social contract. As a society, we collectively agree to abide by certain rules and then enforce them as a group. Whenever a new piece of legislation impacts behavior, seatbelt laws, banning smoking inside restaurants, mandatory recycling, it is an example of a social contract shaping our habits. The group agrees to act in a certain way, and if you don't follow along, you'll be punished. Just as governments use laws to hold citizens accountable, you can create a habit contract to hold yourself accountable. A habit contract is a verbal or written agreement in which you state your commitment to a particular habit and the punishment that will occur if you don't follow through. I'm going to let this person in real quick. Then you find one or two people to act as your accountability partners and sign off on the contract with you. Brian Harris, an entrepreneur from Nashville, Tennessee, was the first person I saw put this strategy into action. Shortly after the birth of his son, Harris realized he wanted to shed a few pounds. He wrote up a habit contract between himself, his wife, and his personal trainer. The first version read, Brian's number one objective for Q1 of 2017 is to start eating correctly again so he feels better, looks better, and is able to hit his long-term goal of 200 pounds at 10% body fat. Below that statement, Harris laid out a roadmap for achieving his ideal outcome. Phase 1, get back to a strict low-carb, slow-carb diet in Q1. Phase 2, start a strict macronutrient tracking program in Q2. Phase 3, refine and maintain the details of his diet and workout program in Q3. Finally, he wrote out each of the daily habits that would get him to his goal. For example, write down all the food that he consumes each day and weigh himself each day. And then he lists the punishment if he failed. If Brian doesn't do these 2 items, then the following consequence will be enforced. He will have to dress up each workday and each Sunday morning for the rest of the quarter. Dress up is defined as not wearing jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, or shorts. He will also give Joey, his trainer, $200 to use as he sees fit if he misses one day of logging food. At the bottom of the page, Harris, his wife, and his trainer all signed the contract. My initial reaction was that a contract like this seemed overly formal and unnecessary, especially the signatures. But Harris convinced me that signing the contract was an indication of seriousness. Anytime I skip this part, he said, I start slacking almost immediately. 3 months later, after hitting his targets for Q1, Harris upgraded his goals. The consequences escalated too. If he missed his carbohydrate and protein targets, he had to pay his trainer $100. And if he failed to weigh himself, he had to give his wife $500 to use as she saw fit. Perhaps most painfully, if he forgot to run sprints, he had to dress up for work every day and wear an Alabama hat the rest of the quarter, the bitter rival of his beloved Auburn team. The strategy worked, with his wife and trainer acting as accountability partners and with the habit contract clarifying exactly what to do each day. Harris lost the weight. To make bad habits unsatisfying, your best option is to make them painful in the moment. Creating a habit contract is a straightforward way to do exactly that. Even if you don't want to create a full-blown habit contract, simply having an accountability partner is useful. The comedian Margaret Cho writes a joke or song every day. She does the Song of the Day challenge with a friend, which helps them both stay accountable. Knowing that someone is watching can be a powerful motivator. You are less likely to procrastinate or give up because there is an immediate cost. If you don't follow through, perhaps they'll see you as untrustworthy or lazy. Suddenly, you are not only failing to uphold your promises to yourself, but also failing to uphold your promises to others. You can even automate this process. Thomas Frank, an entrepreneur in Boulder, Colorado, wakes up at 5:55 each morning, and if he doesn't, he has a tweet automatically scheduled that says, "It's 6:10 and I'm not up because I'm lazy. Reply to this for $5 via PayPal, limit 5, assuming my alarm didn't malfunction." We are always trying to present our best selves to the world. We comb our hair and brush our teeth and dress ourselves carefully because we know these habits are likely to get a positive reaction. We want to get good grades and graduate from top schools to impress potential employers and mates and our friends and family. We care about the opinions of those around us because it helps if others like us. This is precisely why getting an accountability partner or signing a habit contract can work so well. And then it has a little summary. It says the inversion of the fourth law of behavior is make it unsatisfying. We are less likely to repeat a bad habit if it is painful or unsatisfying. An accountability partner can create an immediate cost to inaction. We care deeply about what others think of us, and we do not want others to have a lesser opinion of us. A habit contract can be used to add a social cost to any behavior. It makes the cost of violating your promises public and painful, and knowing that someone else is watching you can be a powerful motivator. All right, let's talk about it. What are y'all's thoughts?
I like that.
Yeah. Which part do you like?
Just the accountability part of it.
Hmm.
I'm obviously I can always make excuses as to why I don't do it,
Hmm.
but, and I have to deal with myself. Um, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I really liked the like formalness of the habit contract of like
Mhm.
signing it, and I loved how specific it was. Like, I will do this many times every day, like very specific there. And then the punishment is really specific too. Like $500 if he doesn't weigh himself goes to his wife. I'd be hiding the scale. Just kidding. Just
Uh,
kidding. How can we apply this to LeBri? Like, what would a LeBri habit contract look like?
hmm. I guess if I was to make one, if I may speak freely, if I was to make one, I would like break it into four weeks. So sales, shows, sponsoring, and follow-up or new customers, I could make that one. And then each week I would have to revamp, or I would have my whole month, my 4 weeks, and then I would break them down each week by what I'm going to do, and then break that down even more with per se shows. I'm going to have so many shows, or I'm going to have 7 shows that week. And then every time I close a show, I start a new one with a new customer as a hostess versus myself. Because I think when we become our own hostesses, it's easy just to go, you know. But if we're working for, in a sense, to help them earn their rewards, that's kind of your accountability partner for your show. You're going to help her get to this goal. What is their goals too, you know? Um, I'm writing this down too.
Yeah, I like that having hostesses and self-hosted, like a good mix. Because if they're all hostesses, that can feel kind of overwhelming. But if they're all self-hosted, then you're not really getting a lot of new referrals either. So having some self-hosted and some with hostesses I like that. What would the sales or the follow-up goal look like?
Um, well, we have to figure out what our monthly goal is going to be. Are you going to earn the $2,500 personal volume that month? Then let's break that down per week. How much do I need to do in a week? Well, how am I going to make those kinds of sales? Well, you're going to have shows. So, that all obviously kind of goes together.
Mm,
So whatever your goal is for the month, break it down per what you would need to do in a week,
mhm.
which then also you can implement your shows within there too. And then following up with people you haven't talked to in a while.
Whew, excuse me.
Bless you. It sound like me.
Whew. So let's like for an example, I think the 2500 PV is an incredible option because you get that $150 cash bonus. So if we did 2500 in a month, that gives you 150 cash bonus. That's 625 PV a week, which is about $100 a day, right? Let me see. It's
Divided by,
it's 90.
well,
It's $90 a day. And the average order is around 90. I'd say it's between 75 and 100 is the average order.
did you use divided by 30 or 31?
I did 2500 divided by 4 weeks, and then I
Oh,
did, yeah,
okay.
2500 divided by 4 is 625 divided by 7 days in a week is 89.285, blah, blah, blah. So I rounded up to 90.
Got it. So instead of, and that's the thing too, is if people are posting on their pages for content, and you're doing like a little giveaway raffle for every $95 order, and you have different streams of Facebook, Instagram, and you put that somewhere or in a group page or whatever, um, where they're going that, then it's more feasible because then now you're going to get that $95 order minimum, and you give them free pair of socks or something, gift with purchase, or maybe do it once a week. You could do raffles once a week, whoever places an order to
Yeah.
hit your goals.
Yep. I love that. I added that down here, engagement. So if how many shows a week should we put in our example?
Um, I would say 3 a week.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Because
that's
yeah,
over that's between $600 and $900
right.
if you
If they
close
close that, yeah.
if they
If they
close that
close.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about sponsoring? What would be a good sponsoring habit contract goal? Like a certain number of conversations, a certain number of asking or one-on-ones or
Well, yeah, it could be definitely a mixture of all of that. And then maybe 5 a day, just having a conversation with somebody, asking about referrals. And instead of asking that person specifically, I was just calling to follow up with you per se. Um, since you're using LeBri, do you know anybody that would be interested in getting, a trial kit, a sample kit, of our LeBri products? And that could be some referrals and doing 5 asks a day. It's kind of like that challenge that I think you did. You can't go home until you send out you hand out personally those 3 samples or 5 samples or whatever,
mm,
and you got to hit your timer for 15 minutes, and you're going to make as many calls asking for referrals, messaging people. And if you do that every single day, even if it's just 5 or 15 minutes, you set 5. You're going to do 5 or you're going to do 15 minutes, and you're going to call or message people in that time frame. And you never know what you might get one a day. That would be awesome. You got 7 new customers, or you can also talk about the profit, the business plan.
hmm.
So what I did for the party this last week, Deanna, was we made up these baskets for doing like the foot spa. And I put together with the basket, I did socks, I did the scrubbing stuff, and I did everything for a foot spa in there. And anybody that came, we put their name in a drawing. And with that drawing, they won one of the baskets, and anybody that would order over $75, they would also get one of the baskets. And that's what I tell people when I try to get them to buy is I let them know about the $75 that they get the free shipping, the free sample, plus their name goes in a drawing where I get them something specific.
Love that. Yeah, reminding them like all of the freebies and like just kind of making it even more enticing is always nice too. So let's just say I really like the idea of a Libri habit contract being month to month. I think it's a good time frame. I also think a Libri habit contract could be quarterly. So yes, you have your monthly goals, but where do you want to be by the time it's leadership? Where do you want to be by the time it's convention? I know some people are working towards promotions, or some people are working towards their first 50 days. Like the time, the length here could match whatever the goal is. I think having this many goals all at the same time might be overwhelming. Like, for example, in the book, he had one goal, which was to be a certain weight by a certain date, right? It wasn't, so maybe your Libri habit contract is to earn the Jamaica trip. Like, that could be the main goal of your contract, or maybe it's to promote by a certain date, or maybe as a leader, it's your goal to help others promote by a certain date. And like, what are you gonna do to work your business while they work theirs, and they would need their own habit contract. But I think another good thing to think about, which we kind of ran out of time, but deciding what the punishment is going to be. The book gave lots of examples about like paying people money as the punishment, or like doing something that you don't look forward to, like wearing a different sports team, or this guy didn't like getting dressed up, so his punishment was having to wear like fancy clothes to work versus being comfortable. So think about something that is unsatisfying for you. It doesn't need to be like detrimental, right? We do Libri for fun. We do Libri, most of us, as something extra and something for us. So we don't want to make it like, oh, well, I'm just not going to do it at all kind of thing. But if you want to earn the trip, or you want to promote, or you want to grow your business, what would be a punishment to help you stick to your goals? Maybe you don't enjoy going live, so your punishment is going live, or maybe you don't
Doing an
enjoy,
event.
yeah, or maybe you don't want to do an event, so your punishment is you have to do something you don't want to do. Maybe you hate like physically calling people, so if you don't message a certain amount of people, your punishment is you have to call that many people, make it pick something that works for you, and ask me or Debbie, whoever your executive is, ask us to sign your contract and loop us in, like write up your own contract, and we'll help you. We'll help you stay accountable, or maybe ask your partner, or anybody that can check in with you and help you stay accountable. Like I said, this is a lot of goals for one contract. So pick one, pick a sales goal, pick a show goal, pick a big overlying goal like Jamaica or promoting. But deciding what you're going to do every day, that'll be really important. And then deciding what your punishment is going to be if you don't do those things daily. And if you want more inspiration, highly, highly recommend this book. Super easy to read, very applicable. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. So, all right, your homework is to write up a Libri habit contract. It does not have to be perfect. And if you want help deciding on what to do, just message me, or put it in the group chat so we can bounce ideas off of each other. And we'll see each other on here next week. Sound good?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night.
Have a good
Bye.
week, you guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.